The princess prayed every day for the nation's destruction, until the enemy breached the city gates. She knelt before the victor, only to obtain a maidservant's position. After all, it was far happier than her previous unbearable life as a princess. While other maids envied the princess's beautiful little dresses, but he directly pointed out the difficulties. First, that dress weighed at least 60 kilograms. The tight corset underneath was also excruciating. It felt like 100 oxen were pressing down on him, making it hard to breathe. Even more terrifying was the immense physical suffering he endured. She had to maintain a proper smile, as if nothing had happened, and this was her daily life. As the only princess in the royal family, she once thought she could live happily, but when she was 10, her mother suddenly passed away. Her father, who should have been grieving with her, immediately married a new queen. Her stepmother, under the guise of training, brutally abused Xiana. She was in so much pain, she nearly died. But her stepmother said this was a necessary step to becoming an elegant princess. Every time she was beaten unconscious, she would plead with her father for help. But the terrible father said, "Madam, you've done a good job. Unqualified children should obediently accept corporal punishment." Under such extreme despair, he began to wish his family would disappear. After all, the affection he longed for never existed from the beginning. Heaven seemed to hear his prayer. On his 18th birthday, the enemy army conquered the capital in just half a day. Led by Hillard, known as the Bloody Prince, he mercilessly slaughtered Xiana's father and stepmother. Then, he walked down to him, looking down from above. Xiana understood that his life might not be happy, but he didn't want to die like this. So he knelt at Hillard's feet, pleading, "Please spare my life. I'll do anything." But the man murmured, "Anything, anything at all. So you want to be my woman?" "Yes, I'm not beautiful enough, nor elegant. How could I possibly be worthy of you? But my embroidery is first-rate, and I brew a fragrant tea. So isn't it perfect to have me as your maidservant?" The other person laughed, amused. "Then, as you say, go to the palace and be a trainee maidservant." And so it was that Xiana survived this hell. But what he didn't know was that although at the time, Hildegard complained that his face was as round as bread, bland and tasteless, he secretly thought to himself that he seemed to have found a cute fellow. So, every day after that, he learned about Xiana through his knight, Sol. Sol was curious too. "Why are you so sad about him?" "It's probably guilt. After all, I trampled his country, and caused him to lose his family." Sol couldn't help but inwardly complain. "I've killed so many people before. When did I ever care about something like this? Your Highness, just tell me the truth. After all, you're easily attracted to cute creatures." Just then, 3 harmless little animals suddenly popped out from the side. That's right, this handsome yet brutal man known to the world as the Bloody Crown Prince is actually someone who has an unbearable fondness for animals. A pervert. No, he's an animal lover. Just then, he suddenly spoke, "So that's it. That's why I wanted to take extra care of her. I hope she can become a regular maid, and be assigned to a suitable place. Your Highness should understand, right? Those without proven abilities cannot become official maids." "Sol, you're right. Then let's test her abilities. Let's see if she has what it takes to become an official maid." Meanwhile, Xiana, he secretly rejoiced. As long as he moved, he could make soft and sweet bread, make dirty clothes look brand new, and even make the courtyard elegant and radiant. These were things he, once dressed in heavy formal wear, had never dared to dream of. Free and easy. "I really want to be a maidservant for life." But just then, someone appeared and blocked his path. "Hey, hey, hey. Looking for more work again? So eager to show off in front of a senior maidservant? Ultimately, you're just a slave of a defeated nation. You'll never become a proper maid in this lifetime." Faced with the redhead's incessant chatter, Xiana wondered in her heart what was going on. 2 maids followed behind her, like long braids dangling from a goldfish's tail, and she quickly reacted. Could this be the legendary bullying of newcomers? Xiana, like a curious child, smiled at the other party. Just then, a strong maidservant stood in front of him. "I think you've gone far enough. Stop picking on him. If you dare to target him again, I'll tell the head maid everything you've done." Hearing this, the red-haired green tea girl instantly broke into a cold sweat. But the next second, she became aggressive again. "Fine then, you 2 pitiful people with no background, support each other. Since you like cleaning so much, I'll let you clean until you're satisfied. Then I'll quickly escape from here." Looking at the bucket kicked over by the redhead. Seeing this, the maidservant felt exasperated. "Don't let people bully you like that all the time. You need to fight back." Xiana finally realized that they were bullying me just now. After all, he was abused by his stepmother since childhood. Therefore, the redhead's little green tea trick seemed somewhat cute in his eyes. Immediately, seeing this, the maid haughtily turned her head away. "By the way, my name is Chocho." Then he also told she, "Yana's red hair does indeed have a basis for arrogance. After all, she is the famously wealthy daughter of an imperial merchant. Therefore, even someone like her who doesn't work I could also rely on my connections to rise through the ranks. Sooner or later, I'll become a probationary maid. Speaking of which, do you really not have any connections at all? As a foreigner, you were able to enter the palace as a maid. Someone must have helped you. Xianna does have powerful connections, and that person is the crown prince of the empire. The reason for this is probably because he saw me abandoning my princess's dignity, kowtowing on the ground and begging for mercy, and found me pathetic or laughable. Then, after calming down, Xianna smiled. Dun was completely unconcerned. The next day, Qiuqiu sighed at the food. No meat again today, but Xianna's eyes lit up. She didn't have to worry about eating elegantly. Don't even think about what to talk about. Just eat whatever you want. It's like being in heaven, isn't it? But just then, the redhead, little green tea, suddenly appeared. Oh, well, as expected of someone from a defeated nation, she can eat even this garbage so deliciously. Suddenly, Xianna thought, little red in front of her must be bullying her. But isn't this just about it? Logically speaking, there should be other, more excessive methods. Thinking about this, he looked at the redhead with a curious expression. Little did he know, his innocent look made the other person's hair stand on end. What the heck? Why isn't he playing by the rules? Normally, he should be crying in grievance. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but scratch his head at Xia's disgusted expression. Oh my, you don't have any other moves? If you're unskilled, practice more. Suddenly, Qiuqiu couldn't stand it any longer. Stop it. Are you addicted to bullying a quiet and well-behaved child? Oh ho. I didn't bother with you before, but you're getting even bolder, sticking your nose into our business again. Don't think just because you're big you can ignore me. I'm the boss here. Boss? You're nothing of the sort. You only bully those who won't fight back, like Xianna. Just then, the room's door was opened. It was Lip, the apprentice lady-in-waiting, who entered. He spoke coldly. Are you two arguing? I don't care if you pull hair or throw punches, but at least don't make a scene in front of me. Hearing this, the red-haired green tea girl immediately flashed a charming smile. We all understood. Head maid. Immediately afterwards, Lip pulled out a letter, saying that a notice had suddenly arrived from above, saying that a tea party would be held in a few days. Let a few of you trainee maids attend to them. Serving others requires strict adherence to etiquette. There can be no mistakes. Therefore, even among the official maids, only the best can be selected. The excited maids chattered, asking, what kind of guests are attending the tea party? Is she an elegant noble lady, or a beautiful princess from a neighboring country? The next second, Lip told them that she's a farmer's daughter who supplies fruit to the royal family. Because the fruit supplied in recent years has been exceptionally sweet, the royal family wanted to commend them. I specifically organized this tea ceremony. Lip said that since you haven't been exposed to tea ceremony, therefore, before the tea ceremony, you will have classes every morning. Gather in the courtyard after you wake up tomorrow. 10 minutes later, the red-haired green tea angrily flung the mop. Why should I have to serve a bunch of lowly peasant girls? But speaking of which, if they weren't peasant girls, someone like you wouldn't have the chance to fulfill your duties. And only then did Xianna understand. No wonder they assigned trainee maids to serve them. Because like isn't a noble, he's working class. So there's no need to assign official maids. The next day, Lip was training everyone in the art of tea. Qiuqiu is so excited. We're so lucky to have the chance to serve others so soon. I'll definitely do my best. However, things didn't go as planned. Qiuqiu kept making mistakes after that. The redhead, a little green tea, mercilessly mocked the muscle-bound idiot. He's hopeless, really. He's never even had tea before. How would he know anything about red tea? Probably the most he'd ever drink is the beer his minor father drinks. Next, it was his turn to demonstrate a series of smooth movements. Even Lip couldn't help but praise him. After all, he had previously hired a famous etiquette teacher from the capital for tutoring. Now, listening to the other maids praising how skilled he was, he didn't seem like someone learning tea ceremony for the first time at all. He was as happy as a 200-gene child. Maybe I'm just gifted. Oh ho 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 ho. I will never remain a lowly maid. I'm going to be the head maid, the one who serves Her Majesty the Empress. Meanwhile, Xianna began to analyze him. If it really was his first time being exposed to the tea ceremony, his performance was truly remarkable. But unfortunately, his skill is still only at the level of an ordinary maidservant. Those who served Xianna before were all carefully selected, high-ranking maidservants. They would pour tea with a grace that surpassed any noblewoman's, quietly and effortlessly. Xianna, once a princess, naturally mastered this skill. Only, she's no longer a princess. Therefore, she didn't want to attract unnecessary attention. When it was Xianna's turn to demonstrate, she showed a few minor flaws. First, she made the water stream thin. His movements were also a little clumsy and awkward. In the evening, Xianna and Qiuqiu sat together sharing bread. He found that Qiuqiu, usually so optimistic and cheerful, seemed very strange today. He remained silent. Speaking of which, it was during the tea ceremony class this year. Chicho received the most scolding. And Chicho has always been the one who was praised. This is the first time Shiena has seen him so flustered. Shiena, I really envy you. Although I'm very angry. But they're right. I've never actually drunk any proper tea. And I have no aptitude for it either. I think everyone can see that. I'm the worst maidservant. Shiena understands. After becoming a maidservant, from beginning to end, Jochio was the only one who helped him. Therefore, he offered to help Jochio every day before the investigation meeting. After the special training, they were always the last two to leave the maid's kitchen. Shiena told Jochio, first, you have to heat the teapot and teacups. Then boil the right amount of water. Add a spoonful of tea leaves. After pouring in the tea leaves, pour it out once. Then steep it. Filter it and it's done. After hundreds of instructions and trainings, Jochio has already completed it very well. And during the practice, the two people's relationship grew closer. This was also the first time Jochio opened up to Shiena. He said he came from a mining village. His father was a miner. There are 13 children in my family. So my father needs to work every day. He wants to supplement the family income. That's why he came here to sign up as a maidservant. Yana felt a little emotional. Jochio, you are such a well-behaved daughter. She's not exactly well-behaved. Isn't it only natural that my younger siblings should have meat to eat? How did you, Shiena, come to be here? Shiena didn't want to mention her past as a princess. So she just said that the crown prince felt sorry for me, having lost my country. So he sent me here. Ah, the crown prince. Is that his highness, Prince Hildegard? The blood prince, the one who's never lost a battle on the field? You've actually met the crown prince? Oh, I'd love to meet him too. I heard that although he has a beautiful appearance, his heart is cruel and tyrannical. Is that true? It's true, because my whole family died at his hands. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't know such a terrible thing had happened. It doesn't matter. I don't care. My so-called family has only ever tormented me my whole life. So it's fine now. Don't worry about it. After listening, Jochio fell silent for a while. Then her eyes welled up. Are you saying that because you're afraid I'll feel sorry for you? Shiena, you're truly kind. Too kind. From this moment on, Jochio's attitude towards Shiena completely changed. While the redhead little green tea was still trying to cause trouble, she always stepped forward to shield Shiena. And said if anyone dared to say anything bad about Shiena again, she'd stretch that redhead's mouth like cheese and tie it to a post. Not only that, she always got Shiena delicious food. I'm already this tall. You, little one, should be the one eating this. Eat it quickly and grow taller. That way, those people won't bully you. Shiena was very happy. This was the first time she had ever tasted such delicious candy. The two of them chatted and laughed. The atmosphere was peaceful. However, at this moment, Jochio's heart was filled with darkness as she thought, that damned crown prince. She actually killed the family of such a kind child. She's completely a psychopathic killer, putting on such a virtuous act. I was so looking forward to meeting her before. Unbeknownst to them, Shiena saw everything. She could almost hear Jochio's thoughts. It was really that obvious. Even though the crown prince was disliked by him, Shiena felt a little sorry, but it felt really good to have someone on her side. Anyway, someone like him deserves to be cursed 10 times a day, at least. It doesn't matter if I pretend I don't know about it. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Crown Prince Hildegard received a letter from the Baroness. He couldn't help but sneeze several times. Achoo! Is someone talking bad about me? Immediately afterwards, he picked up an apple from Arpidon and began to eat it. Soul, this is rather strange, Your Highness. Forgive my bluntness. Even if the apples were exceptionally delicious, no one has ever been invited to the palace for the sake of rewarding a farmer's wife. This is because I intend to use this tea party to test Shiena's abilities. Then he opened the envelope. I just overheard Baroness Alpudin saying she's looking forward to the tea party with great joy. Thus, Sillard began to formulate his plan. On the day of the tea party, the maids, who usually look down on the farmers, were diligently setting things up. Jochio told Ziana, I heard that Baroness Alpudin, the owner of the orchard, will also be attending. That's why the atmosphere is so lively. They're not only welcoming their first guests, but also want to make a good impression on the Baroness, a noblewoman. The redhead, a bit of a green tea girl, is also dressed very elaborately. Her hair ornaments and makeup are different from everyone else's. Jochio couldn't help but mutter, this is a bit too much, isn't it? But Xiayana, standing nearby, looked at Jochio, who was also dressed up meticulously, and said, so you dressed up so beautifully, to make a good impression on Madame Nanjun? Jochio's face instantly flushed red. It's because this is my first time welcoming guests as a maidservant, so I wanted to look pretty in other people's eyes. It would be even better if I had some outstanding clothes. Jochio, don't worry, you'll definitely do great. After all, you were taught by an excellent teacher. Hehe, yes, I'm an excellent disciple too. Then let's work hard together. When the clock strikes the hour, The tea party begins. The front door opens. And after the guests enter, the maids will, let's greet the guests together, to show our welcome. After the guests arrive, the maids standing at the front should come out one by one, to lead the guests to their respective seats. But the little redhead green tea standing at the very front keeps retreating again and again. It's obvious she wants to serve the Baroness. Then Xianna noticed. It wasn't just her. The whole atmosphere of the banquet was strange. The maidservants, responsible for serving, were behaving like nobles, while the guests, as the stars of the party. But they were timid and hesitant, because the maids thought the guests were peasant women, members of the working class, easy to bully, and ignored them. The guests' carriages continued to arrive one after another, and the last to arrive were usually the much-anticipated main characters. Her gorgeous attire and extraordinary demeanor clearly indicate that she is the Baroness Upton, whom everyone has been eagerly awaiting. The crowd's eyes lit up instantly. Wow, she's so beautiful. The redhead, a little green tea, immediately scurried forward. Welcome to the royal tea party, Baroness. Then he signaled to the people behind him with his eyes that he would take responsibility for the lady. Anyone who dares to approach her is asking for death. At this time, Xianna was also watching the noble lady. Suddenly, their eyes met. The noble lady immediately gave her an approving smile. For some reason. Seeing this, Xianna's heart suddenly pounded. Just then, the maidservants beside her began whispering. Another one arrived. Even if she's not a baroness, I don't want to serve someone so ugly. Hearing them say that, Xianna looked curiously. It was a middle-aged woman, of somewhat unattractive appearance, hunched over and leaning on a cane. She seemed to have heard the maid's unkind remarks about her, and she looked timid and shrank back. Seeing no one attending to her, Xianna strode forward. Welcome. Madam, welcome to the palace. The woman watched Xianna's sunny and gentle smile. The woman's heart seemed to settle down a bit. Xianna understands. The most basic rule of the tea party is that no guest can be neglected. Each table will have 3 to 4 guests seated. Dedicated maids will serve them. After all the guests are seated, the Imperial Palace tea party will officially begin. Xianna served the desserts to their respective tables. It's chocolate made with cocoa from Mount Karna. It melts slowly in your mouth. The women were instantly thrilled. This is the same chocolate that Wang Fei and Her Highness the Princess ate. She took another bite and savored it. My taste buds were instantly conquered by the delicious food. I felt like I was lying in a cloud of sweet, soft cotton candy. Just then, Xianna suddenly noticed that the old woman from before had food all over her face. Noticing Xianna's gaze, her face flushed instantly. She felt so embarrassed she wanted to escape, but Xianna showed no sign of disgust. Instead, worried about her discomfort, she offered a handkerchief with both hands. Just as Xianna asked if she needed help wiping, she quickly said thank you. You're welcome, she replied, then turned away. She hastily wiped it up. Seeing this, the other girls were startled at first. Then they came to their senses. My lady, madam, your grace, depending on context, best to decide based on the overall show. I want a handkerchief too. I'm so sorry. You all previously served refined ladies and princesses of high standing. Shouldn't we country bumpkins be feeling quite intimidated? Please don't say that. You are all highly esteemed guests to me, so please enjoy the tea party. Following this, Xianna enthusiastically poured them some black tea, livening up the somewhat stiff atmosphere. Just then, a girl asked the maid. That lady in the purple dress, she must be our baroness, right? I'm sorry, we're not responsible for confirming identities. Don't the ladies know what the baroness looks like? Actually, Baron Alpton just got married recently. The baroness hasn't been to the farm yet, so we haven't seen what he looks like. I heard the baron was smitten at first sight. I was still wondering how beautiful he must be. He truly is very beautiful. Xianna also began to gaze at the man. He shone from head to toe. He clearly diligently studied noble etiquette. That must be Baron Alpton. Madame Hongmao should be properly attended to. If someone like that gets angry, the whole banquet will be ruined. However, the clueless Hongmao little green tea was still happily thinking to herself. It's understandable that everyone is staring here. After all, the person in front of me, it's not something other guests can compare to. Oh. After all, I'm the daughter of a diamond merchant. The people I serve have to be like this. Not those lowly village women. But the next second, but I heard the noble woman in front of me speak. Until when will you ignore me? Your arrogant greeting to me, and that appraising look you gave me. Even when serving me dessert, you were so clumsy, and you even poured tea so clumsily. Until when must I tolerate your rude behavior? The redhead, a little green tea, was terrified. He realized he had been somewhat negligent just now, so he decided to pour the lady another cup of tea. But because of his nervousness, his whole hand was shaking uncontrollably. As a result, he spilled the tea. You should know this is the most basic thing. The maids in the palace are surprisingly incompetent. If a maid can't do her job properly, she will be punished. For example, a whole night of beating, or having her tongue cut off. This way, you won't make mistakes again. What kind of punishment do you want? And just as the red-haired green tea was too scared to react, Kiana quickly stepped forward to apologize. Madam, our abilities are lacking, so I can't please you. But as your maidservant, I will help you adjust your mood. Okay, I understand. But if you can't satisfy me, the anger and punishment you receive, then you will have to take my place. Shiana listened, and respectfully replied, of course, madam. It was at this moment that he suddenly remembered his past. His malevolent stepmother smiled, Your Majesty, it's been a long time since I've had tea made by the princess. Even father's gaze was like a predator seeing its prey. Yes, Shiana. Making tea, for Shiana at that time, allowed no mistakes whatsoever. It was a matter of life and death. How could he possibly do a bad job? After perfectly brewing the tea, he immediately introduced, Madam, the tea prepared for this tea party is Earl Grey from Ingleborough. Please enjoy. If the strength isn't to your liking, please talk to me. With a set of smooth and flowing movements, even the woman who had just been so picky nodded with a smile. But taste is subjective. Even if the tea leaves are excellent and brewed perfectly, if it doesn't suit the madam's taste, then it's all over. But luckily, after the madam took a bite, she showed an approving smile. It's very good. Shiana is happy. He really did it. And so it was. The tea party, filled with tension and excitement, finally ended smoothly. As the ladies were leaving, everyone bid farewell with smiles. Suddenly, the ladies from Shiana's table came forward. Thank you so much, my lady. Thanks to you, we can enjoy the party with peace of mind. At this moment, Shiana felt all her fatigue disappear. Suddenly, Shiana noticed the old lady standing behind seemed to want to say something. So she happily approached, Madam, is there something you want to say? Yes, to be honest. I've hesitated for a long time. You've seen how I look. I don't look very good. Before, I was always afraid of hearing unpleasant gossip in the palace. But until I met you, I realized it was all unnecessary worry. You're like a shining little sun, aware of all my needs. I will never forget this. Today, you gave me this memory. Thank you so much. My lady, Shiana understands. Since ancient times, as a servant, I would never show my true emotions in front of guests. Showing utmost seriousness is a virtue. But right now, she's truly happy. It's really hard to hide her feelings. Unbeknownst to her, this scene was being watched by the purple-robed lady hiding nearby. She couldn't help but smile. Returning to the women's quarters, the two little followers of the redhead and green tea suddenly approached shyly. Shiana, you were so amazing just now. That calm and composed look was so cool. Could you teach us? But the redhead and green tea overheard these words. He stood up angrily. Hey, hey, hey. Are you too serious? Just because he's better at pouring tea, you're groveling before a slave from a defeated nation? It's ridiculous. Jenny, don't you have any shame? You were so obedient at the tea party. I thought you knew shame. You angered Mrs. Nanju. You almost ruined the banquet. Shiana cleaned up your mess. Not only did you not apologize, you also made a big fuss. What kind of captain is this? This made the redhead little green tea extremely angry. You bunch of hicks. Just huddle together for warmth. Meanwhile, on the other side, inside the Crown Prince's palace, standing at the door, Sol noticed the Baroness Balpinton approaching. Madam, you always. Coming to His Royal Highness's room really puts me in a difficult position. Oh, you're so cute when you're grumpy. It's a pity, but my heart belongs only to His Royal Highness. Please give up on this. He just looks perfectly fine. But his mind is filled with perverse thoughts about the soft soles of squirrels' feet. This angered the other party. Thor hastily apologized. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I got carried away. It's okay, you continue. I think your assessment of me is really interesting. I'm not angry at all. Immediately afterward, he strode into the room and snuggled up with his cute little pet. Thor, on the other hand, thought, our prince actually looks quite like a Disney princess. So the crown prince used a disguise to pretend to be a woman. He used a magic stone that cost more than a mansion to do it. This stone can change a person's body for half a day. Then he took off his luxurious gown and jumped into the bathtub. I started washing without a care in the world, under Sol's gaze. Your Highness, how did it go today? Did Miss Shiana meet your expectations? I think she was quite good. She exceeded my expectations. She was a princess just a few months ago. Learning the etiquette of a lady-in-waiting must be quite difficult. Thinking about this, he recalled the details of the day. Shiana's arm position, the jewelry on the teapot, everything was so perfect. It was as if it reenacted the contents of the pear tree scroll. And he also has the bearing of a maidservant, an irresistible temperament. Thinking of this, Hildegard smiled. I have fully tested his abilities. Therefore, 3 days later, just as Shiana was about to rest, she was suddenly stopped by the head maid. Baroness Shiana Alpton is here to see you. She has something to say. And so it was. Xianna knocked on the door. Actually, he was a little nervous inside. During the tea party, I should have treated him better. Why is he looking for me now? Did I do something wrong? Then he saw the Baroness with her back to him. My lady, I apologize for coming to you so suddenly. I startled you, didn't I? But regardless, this time I want to properly greet you. I am Magdalena. I imagine I served you tea at the tea party, Xianna. Your servant greets you again. I've brought some humble gifts. To convey my feelings. Only then did Xianna understand that the woman before her was the Baroness Alpton. She realized she had prejudged, basing her assumption on appearances and believing the woman in purple was the Baroness. How embarrassing. Thinking of this, he quickly apologized to the other party. No, I apologize. My lady, I hid my identity. Actually, when I received the invitation to the royal tea party, the Baroness was very nervous. Because of his appearance, he had been living in seclusion. He was afraid of being pointed at and gossiped about. He was also afraid of being ridiculed by the farmers. But soon, he received another letter from the royal family. It said to conceal your identity when attending the tea party. The Baroness understood this was a good opportunity. She figured no one would pay attention to her then. That day, he noticed that Xianna, although simply dressed, wasn't made up either. She wasn't dressed up, but he possessed an undeniable aura. Therefore, he was greatly inspired by Xianna. The day after the tea party ended, he began to study etiquette. That's why he wanted to formally greet Xianna. He bowed slightly at this moment. I pay my respects to Lady Xianna. Thank you, my lady. Xianna understands. No baroness in the world would greet a mere servant like this. Though the baroness's balance is a little off, and her movements are somewhat clumsy, but Xianna could still feel the brilliance within her. Therefore, Xianna, with respect, happily accepted the lady's kind gift. On her return, Xianna shared the apples with the maids. Everyone was overjoyed. After all, they work hard every day, but can only eat hard bread. And the Baroness, like a goddess, sent sweet and delicious apples. Therefore, he became the maid's eternal god. But a question lingered in Xianna's mind. Who exactly is that noble woman? He looked like a crown prince, with silver hair and violet eyes. That must be a princess of the royal family. Seriously, he's playing pranks in the apprentice maid's workplace. Is this idiot friendless? Just then, the head maid's words interrupted his thoughts. Everyone, listen to me. From today onwards, Xianna is promoted from apprentice maid to a full maid. At first light tomorrow, you'll go to the Red Treasure construction site. You will serve Princess Eris there. The redhead, a little green tea, trembled with anger. Clearly, Xianna arrived last, and her background is lowly. Yet she became an official maid before her. Thinking of this, she ran out aggrieved, wanting to find her father. In the evening, Xianna lay in bed, recalling the events of the past few days. Suddenly, Jojo entered. Xianna, you're still awake? This is a gift to commemorate you becoming an official maid, because you'll be leaving soon. So I bought this in a hurry, hoping you'll like it. Jojo knows that all the maidservants like to dress themselves up, so she hopes that Xianna won't feel wronged either. She specifically asked the shopkeeper to pick the most expensive and prettiest ones. Xianna suddenly remembered. When I was an apprentice maid, I received very little pay, but she bought me such an expensive hair ornament. Perhaps Jojo bought this with her own savings. Thinking of this, Xianna couldn't help but shed tears. She threw herself into Jojo's arms. She was already sobbing uncontrollably. Jojo, thank you. It's really beautiful. I really like it, silly. You don't need to thank me. After all, we are good friends, aren't we? Xianna, don't cry. Go back to sleep. A bright future awaits you. Meanwhile, in the maid's room, head maid Lip curiously said, doesn't Princess Eris have her own personal maids? Why would they send Xianna? Another maid said that I am her exclusive maid. You don't understand me either. Giving up being the princess's exclusive maid, you had to come here to do odd jobs, but only those who have experienced it can understand. Doing odd jobs is much better than serving him, at least in this empire. Absolutely no one could possibly tolerate that devil. The devilish princess known to all, is a cute baby who loves to act cute in the eyes of her little maid, while other maids are desperately trying to escape. But she directly transformed the fallen princess into the empire's most elegant princess, because only she would genuinely cherish her as a 5-year-old child. It was on this day that Xianna was promoted to official maid, and went to serve Princess Eris. On the carriage, her personal maid told her that Princess Eris's mother was a commoner the emperor fell in love with at first sight, so His Majesty gave her a palace with a garden, which is the Ruby Palace where Princess Eris lives now. But when Xianna arrived there, I found this ghastly place was practically a haunted house. Even inside, it was completely empty. There wasn't a single maidservant around. Just then, a maidservant nearby suddenly screamed wildly. Immediately after, she uncontrollably fainted. Shiena followed her gaze. She found a giant spider appearing before her, and the one holding the spider was the legendary Princess Eris. What? Why aren't you reacting at all? So boring. Sorry, Your Highness. If necessary, I will demonstrate the reaction you want. Immediately afterwards, under Eris's bewildered gaze, Shiena cleared her throat, then began a heart-wrenching wail. The screams lasted for 2.5 minutes. Shiena bowed. Your Highness, may I address you now? Servant Shiena greets you. Princess Eris found it strange. Impossible. Why wouldn't someone be afraid of my appearance? Faced with this filthy palace and my own wretched state, yet you can still manage such a warm smile. It must be false. So he spoke coldly, it's meaningless. Get out. I hate maids most of all. Then he slammed the door shut. Just then, the unconscious maidservant suddenly awoke. Excitedly, she grabbed Shiena's hand and said, I've wanted to leave this terrible place for a long time. Unfortunately, there was never a maidservant to attend to me, so I couldn't get out. But now, I really thank you for helping me escape. It's alright, but you have to tell me how to manage this place. It's nothing serious. Just take good care of the princess. Anyway, it's only you and that little devil here. The next second, this castle will be empty. Shiena instantly broke down. Damn, no one called. The master still hates me. It's all over, but I'm already here. Shiena decided to make the best of it. Then she picked up the broom. I plan to clean up first. After an afternoon's work. This dirty place is starting to become clean. Just then, Princess Eris suddenly appeared. It's all useless, you maids doing these things. But Shiena was like a little son. Smiling, I approached Her Highness. Is there anything you require of me? Here we go again. He really treats me like a princess. No one has ever treated me like that before. Stop pretending to be kind. Anyway, you'll probably run away at the first opportunity. Meanwhile, inside the Crown Prince's palace, Hilade was bathing while thinking. Although he had dropped Shiena into the Ruby Palace, but on closer thought, he still hoped to summon Shiena to his own palace. Crown Prince Hilade gazed at the shimmering water. Suddenly, he remembered. That day's Shiena, so radiant and dazzling. Her sunny smile, emanating from the heart, seemed to heal everything. Thinking of this, he involuntarily relaxed. Their smile is so cute. Anyway, the Ruby Palace is very close from here. I really hope I can see him soon. The little princess has never had a full meal since birth, but the maids eat steak and red wine every day. This directly broke the princess's heart, so I could only wolf down the unappetizing but nutritious vegetable salad. The little maid laughed beside me. The reverse psychology worked perfectly. That bad habit of being a picky eater is gone now. Next is the cleaning problem. Your Highness, let's take a happy bath together. I don't want to. I hate getting wet, but if you don't wash, bugs that love dirt will grow on you. The bugs will poop all over you. Hurry, 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 help me bathe quickly. And so, Princess Eris smoothly lay into the bathtub. She discovered that the sponge didn't hurt at all when rubbed against her. Even when the bubbles got in her eyes, it didn't hurt. The rosemary smells wonderful. I feel a joy I've never experienced before. Then, under Shiena's coercion and enticement, he successfully brushed his teeth. He even dried his wet hair for the first time. Princess Eris discovered that, since that annoying maidservant arrived, everything has changed. He even planted vibrant flowers in this barren land. He said he would make beautiful flower crowns to give to Princess Eris when they bloom. The princess. I don't understand. She clearly has lowly blood flowing in her veins. Therefore, she was abandoned by her emperor father. But he always treats me like a real princess. How can I make him reveal his true self? Suddenly, he noticed Shiena's hairpin on the floor. So he deliberately taunted Shiena, who was humming a song. What are you giggling about over there? It's affecting other people's moods. Shiena, who had been smiling, but froze the moment I looked back. The hairpin Chocho gave me, was now on Princess Eris's head. This was the most precious gift Shiena had ever owned. So I immediately said, Your Highness, excuse me, the hair ornament you're wearing is mine. Please return it to me. But I heard them say that this is my palace. Therefore, everything here belongs to me. Suddenly, Princess Eris noticed that the usually good-tempered Shiena was unusually serious. But she still proudly shouted, if you want it back so badly, then come and get me. He thought Shiena would definitely not be able to catch him. After all, in all these years, no maid had ever been able to catch him. But the next second, he turned his head, and found Shiena had caught up. Her speed is like a tiny electric motor. Suddenly, Princess Eris found herself blocked, and Shiena was steadily closing in on the princess. It's not right to joke like this with someone else's belongings. Please return it to me quickly. Princess Eris felt a sudden chill. He used to say he would do his best to serve me as his master. But he ended up just like the other maids. It was just empty words. So, like that. He said he didn't want it. while throwing the hair ornament into the pool. Then there was a loud bang. Shiena jumped into the pool. Actually, Princess Eris wasn't always so willful. When her mother left, the maid held him and said she would take good care of him. Eris was overjoyed. I felt he was as warm as my mother. But later, that maid was captured. Only then did Eris understand. He realized that I had no adult protection. So he had been unscrupulously selling off things from the Ruby Palace. Eris wanted to pretend nothing had happened. Even if he continues to steal things to sell, I'll turn a blind eye. But in the afternoon, the maidservant packed her things to leave. He looked at Eris's bewildered expression and her small hand nervously clenching into a fist. He still said those hurtful words. Since he'd been discovered, then I have nothing to say. That's all you're good for. Otherwise, who do you think would be willing to wait on a useless thing like you? For the next period of time, new maids will keep coming, but they always leave with a cold face in the end. The words they spoke so freely are something Eris will never forget. Even if he is of lowly blood, he shouldn't be such a useless person. I didn't expect to work here and gain absolutely nothing. This princess is such trash. Among those who left, Eris suddenly saw Shiena. Even he said I was tired of serving the princess. At that moment, Eris suddenly woke up from his bed. He understood that everyone would leave him. Ziana is no exception. She would definitely pack her bags in the middle of the night, then leave without a word. So now he truly is alone. Eris felt that it was better to be abandoned from the start, than to suffer deeper hurt later. But just then, someone suddenly pushed open the door. Oh, my princess. You're awake so early today. Didn't sleep well? Then you can sleep a little longer. If you're too tired, you won't have an appetite. It's also not good for digestion. Eris suddenly felt a terrible soreness in his throat. He couldn't even speak a word. Even though he had done such an outrageous thing, Kexiana didn't leave me. She's still as incredibly gentle as yesterday. Thinking about this, she hugged Shiena tightly. I'm so sorry, really sorry. I know I'm really awful. So you can scold me, or beat me. Just please forgive me. Your Highness doesn't dislike me at all. Although yesterday's incident hurt me a lot. I swam around in the water and still couldn't find it back. But I know. Children sometimes do silly things. And your Highness apologized so sincerely. It's all fine now. I've thought it through now. The Ruby Prince has a lot to do. But you're my only maidservant. I'm a useless member of the royal family, too. I'll help you from now on. I'll help you clean and do laundry. And I won't be picky about food anymore. I'll share the delicious food with you. I'll be a good child. So, Shiena, can you stay here with me forever? Shiena was touched. Her Highness is so adorable. She's very stubborn. But I couldn't be honest about the pitiful yet lovely little girl who cries easily. Of course I can. Your Highness. Because I am Princess Eris's maid, after all. After that, Eris never played any more nasty pranks. She will learn to water the flower beds. Under Shiena's guidance, she'll even struggle to lift the large bucket with her small frame, just to help Shiena with the cleaning. But for a child, cleaning and washing there are more important things to do. That is, studying. So Shiena applied for paper and pens. She would personally teach Her Highness. Little did she know, the royal library staff said that the maids of the Ruby Palace were using the princess as an excuse. Go sell the high-quality goods. It's not a simple matter. If you really need supplies, then bring the confirmation letter from other royal families. This would drive Shiena crazy. After all, no one can write such a thing for themselves using other royal families' confirmation letters. Just then, Eris suddenly spoke. There might be a way. How about I talk to the Crown Prince? And so, Shiena sent a hopeful letter to the Crown Prince. But less than 2.5 minutes later, Crown Prince Hildegard appeared here, just like a bright and cheerful boy. Brother, what are you doing here? You could have just sent someone to deliver the confirmation letter. Why did you come in person? You're not going to snatch my Shienai away, are you? My beloved sister needs help. Of course, I came to see for myself. And since we have a guest, shouldn't I pour you a cup of tea, brother? Shiena felt a little embarrassed. Because of the Hongbao construction, there wasn't any tea to offer. Hey, don't worry. I happen to bring some Darjeeling tea from the Himalayas. This will do, right? And so, Shiena began to entertain. But what made him want to cry was, Prince Hillard kept blinking his big eyes, never taking his gaze off me. Not bad, Shiena's tea is delicious. It's still as excellent as ever. By the way, Eris, I was the one who had Shiena come to the palace as a maid. It was I who asked her to come to the Ruby Palace. What? 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 You actually know my Shiena? Let me tell you, you mustn't snatch him away. Oh, no. Hildegard smiled. She didn't answer, but instead asked Eris, don't you know that I know Shiena? Did she ever mention me before? About me? Not even a tiny bit. Shiena is mine. You better scram, kid. Just then, Sol reminded His Highness Hillard. It's time for the Imperial Conference. You should go. Hildegard sighed. Then she handed the confirmation to Eris. Thank you, idiot brother. In return, what should I give you? Hildegard patted Shiena's hand, saying, I've had such excellent tea. I don't need anything else. And thank you. Shiena has made my day. What are you two doing? Idiot brother. Get out. Don't touch other people's things. You get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. After Hildegard left, Shiena said she didn't expect the princess and the prince to be so close. Eris responded, how is that possible? Who would be close to someone as disgusting as him, who touches other people's maids? Yana, you may not know. This is just a transaction. My brother gave me the confirmation. I also owe him a debt of gratitude. We are all contenders for the throne. Why would he help me for free? In this country, before a new prince ascends the throne, countless people are replaced. This means that we half-siblings will compete for the throne. I'm easy to bully. He has no support. He doesn't even have a mother. And my brother gave me the promise so easily. He didn't even ask for anything in return. They must have looked down on me. And Shiena suddenly thought. Indeed, if they were really close, he wouldn't have put off the princess like that from the start. And only a princess who is very close to the throne can truly act like a princess. So, what should his princess do? To be like a normal child? Secretly pour away the green peppers she doesn't like, and stay up late whenever she wants to play? In this world, what can Shiena do for her princess? At the same time, on the other hand, in the crown prince's carriage, Sol asked, do you really like Miss Shiena that much? Yes, I do. Have you seen her big, round eyes? She's as cute as a squirrel. And have you noticed? The Ruby Palace has become very clean, and Eris looks much healthier than before. Sol, haven't you noticed? Eris has finally opened her heart to Shiena. Did you intentionally send Miss Shiena to the Ruby Palace? Yes, I know Shiena. That girl isn't constrained by status or power in her interactions with others. She can easily get along with anyone. But that alone isn't enough to win Eris's heart. Apparently, before Eris was even born, Hillard had an excellent relationship with his biological mother. He would always lie on Fei Wong's stomach, feeling the movements of this lovely little life. Eris. Back to the present. Hillard says he and I were connected before he was even born. That's why we share the same interests and hobbies. I think she's adorable. Eris would definitely think so too. After all, Shiena is really cute. Super cute, oh my. I really want to drink tea made by Shiena again. Sol is a little speechless. This idiot keeps bringing up the topic of cuteness. 800 times a day. My ears are going to develop calluses. For the next period of time, Fayad kept saying that Eris owed him a favor. So, to give him a chance to repay his debt, I'll just force myself to come drink tea every day. Eris wanted him to leave. But seeing the matcha cake he brought, he swallowed the national swear words he was about to utter. Brother Xia's tea from that episode was the best. But just based on a confirmation slip. You come here every day to drink tea. I feel like it's not worth it now. So grant me a request, will you? Shiena's hair ornament fell into the lake. Help me find it. That's how Hillard summoned 100 soldiers. They drained the lake dry. Only then did they find Shiena's hair ornament. Besides that, he also sent a whole truckload of gifts. Food, drinks, and necessities. Everything was included. But Shiena was close to tears. After all, Hongbao is a public, with only one maidservant. Moving all this stuff back will exhaust me. He painfully took a small cart. It slowly advanced at a speed of 2.5 centimeters per hour. Just then, Crown Prince Hildegard appeared. He cheerfully helped him push the cart. Later, when Shiena mentioned this to Qiuqiu, she said, sweating profusely, that she had said the princess was looking for her at the time, so she hurriedly ran away. Anyway, it seems like His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has some mental problems. He's like a madman. But Qiuqiu said no. I think he's like a stalker. You have to be careful. But for the next period of time. But Hildegard seemed completely unaffected, still cheerfully running to the Ruby Palace every day. He would always ask for their opinions, then bring various different desserts to share. And even if he asked Shiena to make him tea, he would do so with a smile, full of friendliness. Please. During her interactions with Shiena, Shiena gradually discovered that she was surprisingly kind to both the fallen princess and the lowly maidservant. Therefore, she couldn't. I think this guy is sane. I guess his brain is fried. Unbeknownst to them, a man in black was secretly watching from afar. The man then reported this to his master, the fifth princess. The crown prince went to Hongbao Construction again, and he also took a lot of sweets that Princess Eris likes. Why does Brother Hillard always go to Hongbao Construction? It's so annoying. Why does that girl get special treatment? She was born so lowly. The fifth princess beside her said, try to understand. After all, she's a pitiful child. But mother, clearly my status is higher. How can this be? If that's the case, to let my dear sister know her place. I, her older sister, will personally educate her. Because of her snow-white blonde hair, the little girl was considered ominous from birth. But her merciless older sister still didn't intend to let her go. She summoned her to her tea party, intending, as usual, to humiliate this lowly younger sister like a beggar, in front of all the servants. But what she didn't expect was that the useless princess was unexpectedly elegant. "What's wrong, sister? You don't look so well." It was on that day that Eris received a letter from the fifth princess, inviting her to their tea party. Alice was so angry she started to mutter curses. Does she think I don't know she's trying to bully me again? Shiena, standing nearby, was very curious. "Your Highness, how will he bully you? He would always find fault with my clothes and behavior. He would then laugh and ask if I was even qualified to be a princess." "Don't worry, Your Highness. Just go to your appointment with peace of mind. Don't I exist?" Before the tea party, I will prepare everything. First, the first step. Before the host offers you tea, you cannot drink it first. And you mustn't make a sound while drinking. After taking a sip, you must put down the cup. You mustn't make a sound at this time either. Then, under Shiena's guidance, Eris completed their first practice. Shiena immediately transformed into a compliment machine. "That was really good. Your Highness was perfect from beginning to end. I've never seen such elegant movements. Your Highness, are you a genius?" No, definitely a genius." "That's amazing." Li Tiankai, the fourth princess of Ali. Looking at the fourth princess of Ali's blissful expression, Shiena couldn't help but laugh. Humility is a virtue. But for royalty, only overflowing confidence will prevent them from being ignored. And so, for the next few days, they practiced from morning till night. Because the Ruby Palace had no ornate clothing, nor any money, Shiena stayed up all night making a dress for the princess. Baris finally realized why Shiena had looked so haggard lately. It was all for her. And this dress is truly beautiful. It carries Shiena's overflowing love. Just then, Shiena looked at her with eyes full of tenderness. "Your Highness, you are truly beautiful, like a rose fairy from mythology." Hearing this, a warm current suddenly surged through Eris's heart, flowing to his limbs. At this moment, he suddenly felt the road ahead wouldn't be so difficult anymore. And so, he took Shiena's hand, preparing to go to the tea party. At that moment, the fifth princess was sitting in the garden. He remembered the Eris of the past, wearing rags that even beggars wouldn't want, devouring food like a stray dog from the slums. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. That comical sight. Just thinking about it feels exhilarating. But just then, he suddenly heard someone calling him from behind. "Thank you so much for inviting me to the party. What's wrong with Yvette? Sister, you don't look well. Are you sick?" Shiena, standing nearby, looked relieved. "Good. Her Highness hasn't forgotten how to smile. After all, in the palace, those who lose their smiles are like Shujia." The fifth princess standing beside me was too shocked to speak. "That girl actually looks quite princess-like now. Last time I saw her, she looked like a gorilla. Now, I can't find a single fault with her. What's going on? Could it be just because a maid came? Has he changed that much?" And so, the fifth princess's mind raced. She thought of a good way to make things difficult for Eris. "My sister has really changed, hasn't she? My teacup is empty, conveniently. Could you pour me a cup of tea? And I didn't want the maids. Rather, I wanted my dear sister to entertain me." Shiena was immediately flustered. Although Eris was familiar with the etiquette of being entertained, he had never taught her the etiquette of entertaining others. But what no one expected. As Eris poured the tea, not a drop spilled. The angle was perfect. She was as graceful as a lady-in-waiting serving a princess. The fifth princess felt a knot of unease in her stomach. Since there was no way to make Eris look bad, "I'll have to handle this myself." So, the moment Eris offered him the teacup, he knocked it over, pretending to be scalded by the tea, and then, playing the victim, he yelled at Eris. "What are you doing? I kindly asked you to come, yet you deliberately hurt me. As your older sister, I must properly punish you. Make you understand your mistake." Eris instinctively dodged after seeing this. He understood he was going to be beaten again. However, the expected pain didn't come. He opened his eyes and found Shiena standing in front of him, verbally warning the fifth princess to stop. The fifth princess was incredibly shocked. A small servant girl dared to stop her, but then she heard Shiena say, "Please forgive my rudeness. But your highness, I cannot watch you violate his majesty's rules." It turns out that the emperor of this country once established a rule. That is, without his permission, no one can punish the imperial ancestor, even if that person is also an imperial ancestor. But the imperial princess's name, what Shiena mentioned are merely formalities. The emperor's descendants receive different treatment based on their power. Therefore, even if they ruthlessly trample on the weak, they pay no price. But today, this little maid openly. Let's talk about the rules. If this gets out, as the fifth princess, she'll be ruined. So she withdrew her hand from Eris. Then she smiled and said, "Although my sister studied under Li Jie, it seems she didn't teach her maids well. She, a mere woman, dared to touch a member of the royal family's body, so she deserved to be punished. And the next second, understanding her master's intentions, the fifth princess's maidservant slapped Xiana across the face. The force. Unable to bear it, Xiana fell to the ground. But she still respectfully said, "Thank you for your guidance, Your Highness." The fifth princess laughed triumphantly after hearing this. Witnessing all this, Eris involuntarily stood up straight. Then the two of them left in a fluster. The martial princess is still laughing behind you. If you don't want to be invited again, then just behave yourselves. Xiaofiwu and Eris, on their way back. The time had come to dusk. Eris asked, "Why did you do that just now?" Xiana looked puzzled. "What do you mean, Your Highness?" A bitterness welled up in Eris's heart. He knew that if Xiana hadn't intervened, he would have been the one taking the beating. Xiana knew this, and yet still threw herself in front of me without hesitation. He wanted to protect the powerless me. Thinking of this, his eyes welled up, so he quickly turned his face away and said, "No, it's nothing. Let me take you to heal your wounds first." 10 minutes later, a kiss landed on Xiana's face. It hurt a little, he understood. His little princess probably hadn't treated others before, therefore, his technique was a little rough, but he was still very patient in teaching Eris how to treat. Suddenly, Xiana noticed that Eris beside him was already sobbing uncontrollably. So he spoke, "Your Highness, you're very angry about what happened today, aren't you? So, would you like to possess the power to take revenge? Even if it's a path of ruthless means and extreme suffering? I don't mind. No matter the cost. I will accomplish it. Then, Your Highness, I'll help you. I know exactly what to do." The empire's crown prince fell in love with a lowly maidservant, but she thinks he's crazy. After all, the crown prince is a cold-blooded killing machine, and now he's acting like a clingy puppy around one of his servants. This makes Xiana unable to think he's normal. Therefore, the crown prince could only reluctantly learn about Xiana's situation through his subordinates. But today he learned that the girl he held dear had been beaten by the fifth princess. Upon learning this, the crown prince immediately wanted to avenge Xiana, but Soul beside him stopped him. "Your Highness, there are complicated circumstances. I think you know better than I do. Miss Xiana's master is Princess Eris. She's a competitor for the throne, just like the fifth princess. If you were to intervene on behalf of a maid who's been bullied, and you were to arbitrate against the fifth princess, Your Highness, Miss Xiana could very well become a sacrifice in the power struggle. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Princess Eris, for Xiana's sake, also intends to enter the power struggle. And as a former princess, Sharana understands better than anyone how to navigate this path. So she asked the princess, "Your Highness, what do you think happened today?" Because he has his mother standing by his side. "But I don't." "You're very clever, Your Highness. In this situation, if you want to be stronger than Princess Yvette, you need powerful people on your side. That's the fastest and most realistic approach. That person must be able to influence the imperial power, but not be a contender for the throne. Someone with great power who can fully support Princess Eris. If it were that person, I can definitely do it. Empress Godoria of the Empire. So, Your Highness, you need to make the Empress your ally." Eris was completely dumbfounded. How is that even possible? After all, we haven't even met. "No, Your Highness, we can create an opportunity," Xylana told him. Besides the current emperor, the Empress Dowager has another daughter, but he wasn't even 10 years old. He was poisoned to death. Someone had intended to poison His Majesty, the Emperor, but the little princess accidentally drank the tea. While the Empress Dowager mourned her daughter's death, she also decided to use this as an opportunity to eliminate her political enemies. He dealt with those who killed his daughter. He secured the foundation of power for his youngest son, ultimately making him emperor. But now he has distanced himself from the son he once cherished. He himself is gradually forgotten by the imperial power. Xiana understands. That's because the Empress Dowager still misses her daughter. Therefore, this is a good opportunity for us. If Eris can alleviate the Empress Dowager's longing, and establish some kind of connection with her, Your Highness, you will surely become stronger. Time quickly came to the second day. The Empress Dowager received a letter sent by Eris. Fortunately, he didn't throw it away or refuse it, but instead read it seriously. But the next second, with a ripping sound, the Empress Dowager coldly tore the letter into pieces. But the next day, another letter from Eris arrived. The Empress Dowager didn't bother to even look at it, directly ordering her maidservant to throw it away. Every day after that, Eris would send letters. However, all he received in return were 2 words, throw away. Yet, the scheme seemed to have failed. Xiana, however, smiled and told Eris, even if rejected countless times, as long as it could stir a little ripple in his heart, then the plan can begin. In 2.5 months, the Empress Dowager gazed at the letter in the maid's hand. Finally, she had fewer idle things. That was also the first time he hadn't had the maid throw the letter away. The Empress Dowager discovered the seal on it was surprisingly sweet peach-flavored. I can't help but exclaim, what a child. Then he discovered, unlike the childish feel of the outer packaging, the font inside was surprisingly elegant and grand. What he didn't know was, that was Princess Eris's unwavering practice for this very moment. It's a flowing script written only for him. The Empress Dowager couldn't help but exclaim, this granddaughter of mine isn't as useless as I thought. Time quickly passed to that afternoon. Paris read the Empress Dowager's reply while grumbling, my dearest. You are my spring blossom. You are my autumn leaf. Whoa, that's so corny. How could that old woman say such a thing? Xianna, however, stated that, this line is a quote from the poet Libram's poem by the Empress Dowager. You have such good taste. And the fact that he's even replying is a stroke of luck, I think. Please stop being unreasonable. Oh, so noisy. So noisy. So noisy. How long am I supposed to keep writing these idiotic letters? In his reply, he was totally just showing off, wanting me to be nothing more than a listener. Don't worry, Your Highness. The opportunity will come soon. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Empress Dowager asked her attendant, you served at the Ruby Palace before, didn't you? Do you remember what Princess Eris looked like? The maidservant told him, Princess Eris had purple eyes, just like His Majesty's, and if the little princess were still alive, she would be about his age. So the next day, Eris was invited to the Empress Dowager's palace, and under Xianna's guidance, his every word and action exuded the air of royalty. I sincerely thank you for summoning me. Grandma Xianna was instantly stunned by this contrast. Damn, he curses her as old hag every night, yet now he's so devout. Then Eris spoke, because I want to reciprocate your invitation. I've prepared a small gift. It's tea made with locust blossoms. I heard you like flowers and tea, so I made this flower tea myself. If you don't mind, can you accept it? The next second, the grumpy princess transformed into a soft and cute baby. He didn't forget to blink his bright, sparkling eyes. That chubby, cute little face immediately reminded the Empress Dowager of her own daughter. Then she slowly spoke, oh, like this. I've prepared a very unique gift. Then, please use the tea leaves to make a cup of tea. 10 minutes later, after the fastidious Empress Dowager tasted the tea Eris brought, she genuinely said it was good. Thank you for your affirmation. I hope it suits your taste. I'm truly very happy. The following conversation between the two is just as in the letter. The Empress Dowager recounts her past glories, and Eris echoes her, praising her. Eris's performance is nearly perfect. He gently placed down the tea stirrer. He lightly pressed his lips together. This was something Xianna had taught him to practice again and again over the past few days. When speaking, he needed to gently and subtly cover his mouth. He also needed to recite poetry in a gentle tone, maintaining an elegant posture. And all of this was for today. For this person before me. Just then, Eris spoke, Grandmother, every flower in your courtyard is elegant and beautiful. The Empress Dowager smiled after hearing this. If you are curious about any flower, I can tell you everything. Really? I'm so happy, thank you so much. Seeing Eris's adorable smile, the Empress Dowager's heart slowly healed. She couldn't help but think, what a lovely child. Suddenly, the Empress Dowager realized it was getting late, so she reminded Eris that it was time to go home. I apologize for taking up so much of your time, Grandma. Thank you so much for inviting me today. And watching Eris behave so well, she couldn't help but think of her daughter. Back then, although the little princess was always lonely, she often acted like a little adult, always firmly remembering every task her mother had to do, and reminding her not to waste time on herself. What saddened the Empress Dowager was that her daughter never acted childishly towards her. She was always gentle and smiling, and it was such a good child, who always suppressed her own grievances, that was taken from this world by others' malice. At that moment, he couldn't help but look at Eris, muttering to himself, really, you really are like that child. In the evening, Eris lay alone in bed, and couldn't help but recall everything that happened during the day. He told Xianna, I find it a little magical. I thought the Empress Dowager would be a very cold person, but it seems she's different from what I imagined. However, Xianna had a different focus on today's events. She noticed that Arlisa's mouth twitched occasionally. He was trying hard to pretend to be a good child interested in the Empress Dowager. This led him to worry about a more important issue. That is, guilt. So he asked the princess, don't you feel guilty? Like you're deceiving him? But he didn't expect. Eris's answer was decisive, absolutely not. Not at all. When that person was with me, he didn't ask me a single question about myself. It's also because I'm a princess abandoned by my mother. Why would he be curious? What he really wanted to know was how beautiful I was, how well versed I was in etiquette, how much I resembled his daughter, and how well I acted the part. That was most important. If he knew even a little about me, he absolutely would not have shown me that smile just now. So, the only feeling I have for that old woman is hatred. Ugh. Damn old woman. Oh, and Shiena. I did a great job today, didn't I? Yes, Your Highness. You're truly amazing. Upon hearing the reply, Baris threw himself directly into Shiena's arms. He hugged her tightly like a real child. However, Shiena felt a deep bitterness in her heart. With his help, Eris will achieve his rightful place. But at the same time, he will lose himself. He knows it's a cruel plan. But he has no choice but to resort to any means necessary. Night. Garden courtyard. Crown Prince Hildegard has been waiting for a long time. Noticing Shiena's arrival, she finally showed a long-lost smile. Shiena curtsied to her. Then she said, "Thank you for your help, Your Highness. Thanks to Your Highness, I achieved what I wanted." It turns out that Shiena secretly went to see Hillard back then, hoping to learn about the Empress Dowager's deceased daughter, even just the smallest details. And Hillard, faced with her sincere words, "I couldn't refuse," so it was passed through Hildegard. Shiena learned that his deceased daughter loved acacia blossoms, loved elegant little white dresses, loved the elegant poems of the imperial era, and loved having afternoon tea with her mother. So Shiena used these preferences on Eris. All this would awaken the Empress Dowager's deepest consciousness, unintentionally gaining her compassion. Thus, Empress Dowager Godoria, in the name of love, unconsciously became infatuated with this false daughter. Time returns to the present. Shiena thanked profusely. "I don't know how to repay you. But I heard Hildegard say that she didn't need any repayment. I want you to tell me how you chose the Empress Dowager from among so many people in the palace. Don't be nervous, don't be nervous. I didn't intend to do anything to you. I was just curious." Then Shiena told him that as a powerless princess, she had once pondered how to survive. This was one of the plans he devised. After he gathered information on the royal family for Eris, he learned of the Empress Dowager's loss of the little princess, and so he remembered this plan. However, hearing this, Hillard fell into an unusual silence. After a long time, he asked Shiena, "I caused you to lose your country. Do you hate me? How could that be? My family always abused me. In the past, I struggled with how to escape their clutches, rather than sadness. I'm truly happy now." Hearing that, Hillard was too shocked to speak. Facing the person who killed his family, he acted completely indifferent. This person is not simple. Shiena, you have such a cute face, but he also possesses such a cruel side. What an interesting person. After Shiena returned to Humboldt's construction site, she told Eris that since the plan was successful, it was time to implement the next one. Soon, the fifth princess received a letter from Eris. His entire face contorted. He involuntarily cursed, "Is that guy crazy?" The next day, in the gardens of the Ruby Palace, Eris bowed with a smile. "You've readily accepted my invitation to be a guest at my first tea party. Thank you, Sister Ivk." But unlike last time, the fifth imperial concubine was also summoned. The princess was very displeased. She felt that Eris should always remain that shameful and laughable beggar. So, as soon as he sat down, he started to make things difficult for Bao. "Could you pour me a cup of tea? This time, I'd like to ask your maidservant to." The fifth princess wanted to find fault with Shiena, but even after a thorough inspection, he also found that there was absolutely nothing wrong. He then looked disdainfully at Shiena, continuing, "What are you looking at me like that for? You're glaring at me. Speaking of which, you were that maid back then, weren't you? Is it because you harbor resentment towards me? So that's why you cut me off?" Shiena was clearly scared. No, how could that be? Your Highness. Oh my, you still won't admit it. Alright, very good. This time, I'll have to properly teach you a lesson, you maidservant. Give me the stick. No, older sister. If you touch Shiena again this time, I absolutely will not forgive you. Eris, what are you being so arrogant about? So you think you can act so boldly because you have grandma backing you up? Do you dare to talk back to me like this? I know you're trying to win him over. This has spread throughout the palace. Because the Empress Dowager is His Majesty's mother, you think you can rely on him? Ha 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 ha. How can our poor Eris have such a cute idea? Well, since that's the case, let me tell you something interesting. You believe that the person you depend on has no power, because His Majesty severed ties with the Empress Dowager long ago, the Emperor's ascension to the throne. The rumor spread like wildfire. You didn't know anything about it? My poor, foolish sister. Not only that, he doesn't have much time left. You're still flattering him. How incredibly foolish. But just then, someone suddenly appeared behind me. Seeing this, the fifth princess's already small eyes widened in surprise, because he discovered that the person behind him was actually the Empress Dowager of the Empire. Little girl, were you just talking about me? Just because he was too ugly, he was treated like a dog his sister could abuse at will. Even the Empress Dowager, who protected him, was called a useless waste by his sister. It's simply because the Empress Dowager, overcome with grief over her daughter, hasn't left the palace in nearly 10 years. Therefore, the fifth princess assumed she had no one to support Eris. But the next second, the person in question appeared here. Little girl, do I, your Empress Dowager, seem that ridiculous? It was just a few days ago that Eris learned all the deceased Empress's daughter's preferences, and incorporated them into her every word and action. In this way, Empress Godoria, in the name of love, unwittingly fell for this fake daughter. Eris then took the opportunity to express, in a pitiful tone, that she would be holding her first tea party in a few days. I also invited the fifth princess. I'm worried I'll make a mistake. After all, there's no one in the palace to teach me. And then the Empress Dowager realized that this child had no mother. She was somewhat moved. I lost my daughter, and this little girl before me lost her mother. It all seems so fitting. So the Empress Dowager took his small hand and said, I will help you. Time returns to the present. The Empress Dowager snatched the whip from the fifth princess's hand. Are you going to attack this child's maid, young lady? Just how did your mother raise you? Let me tell you. What does brandishing that mean? Lifting up skirts and so on. I am of the Emperor's bloodline. Even if you were the Empress Dowager, and wanted to hit me, you'd still need my father's permission. Are you threatening me with my son? Then go tell him yourself. Let's see how he reacts. The powerful aura made the fifth princess almost unable to stand. Her previous arrogance vanished instantly, so she could only stand silently in place. She endured the Empress Dowager's taunts again and again. However, she still held on to hope, waiting for Mother to arrive. She will definitely defend herself. After all, Mother is currently favored by the Emperor. Noticing this, the martial Empress immediately rushed over. The martial princess laughed. Now I'll make that old woman look good. But the next second, the martial princess actually knelt down. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager, you are so kind to personally educate this unworthy child of mine. Thank you so much. Yvette, you should thank Her Majesty too. The fifth princess was completely shocked. How could this be? Mother was a much-loved princess. It must all be because of that woman. And in that instant of their gaze, Xia Anna actually showed a mocking smile. 10 minutes later, inside the Ruby Palace, Baris lay comfortably in bed. That was satisfying. I didn't expect Grandma to help so much. However, after a burst of laughter, Baris returned to calmness. He told Xiana that I really wanted to ask the Empress Dowager why they let my mother die that day. It turned out that 5 years ago, Eris's mother was a princess of high rank, carrying a royal child. Yet, just before she was about to give birth, but no doctor came. He sought help from everyone, including the Empress Dowager, but he only received silence in return. In despair, he could only give birth to Eris alone. Then he closed his eyes forever. Therefore, Eris always wondered, why did the Empress Dowager ignore Mother's plea? But he didn't ask. Because he understood, to get the Empress Dowager on his side, he had to be a good child who didn't resist or question. Hearing this, Xiana unconsciously touched her face. Your Highness, I understand your pain. Cry if you need to. At this moment, all her grievances and despair led her to bury her face in Xiana's embrace, and cry her heart out. And Xiana was also thinking to herself, that her plan was a little cruel. A month ago, Xiana, in order to understand what was happening in the palace, had consulted a large number of historical books and documents. She also learned about the past of Eris's mother, Ruth. Rose lacked noble birth or a reliable family. She was merely a powerless performer. Therefore, everyone said she was of lowly status. She was not qualified to bear imperial offspring. Desperate, Rose sought the Empress Dowager's help. He thought that the child in his wife's womb was, after all, the Empress Dowager's granddaughter. He was certain she would help. But the Empress Dowager said she didn't want to be involved in anything to do with him. Therefore, with nowhere to turn, Ruth had to give birth alone. He strained every muscle to deliver Eris. But I've worn myself down. Looking at the adorable baby brought by the maidservant, he could only helplessly shed 2 lines of hot tears. My child, I'm sorry. Mother may not be able to continue protecting you. Xiana understands. The Empress Dowager was responsible for her mother's death, yet she told her to behave well in front of the Empress Dowager. I truly am sorry, Your Highness. But just then, Eris embraced her, and asked what Xiana's next plan was. Since we've already started, we have to squeeze every ounce of use out of that old woman. A week later, the Empress Dowager muttered to herself, after that tea party, Eris hasn't come to see us. Sure enough, he's just like the 5th princess. He thinks I'm ridiculous, doesn't he? But Kexiana arrived at his palace at that moment. Your Imperial Majesty, Princess Arisa. He's been poisoned. Upon learning of this, the Empress Dowager immediately rushed to the Ruby Palace to visit Eris. Xiana told her that Eris's dessert contained poison, because it wasn't fatal, and it wasn't a long-term dose of poison. The doctor said he would recover soon. But Princess Eris, perhaps because she was already frail, showed no sign of improvement. Eris weakly spoke, "Grandmother. I'm sorry. I didn't contact you because I was afraid you'd worry, and it's because of these things." These words. It instantly struck the Empress Dowager's softest spot. Such a sensible and lovely granddaughter. Yet I just now thought. She grabbed Arisu's small hand, already sobbing uncontrollably. "You silly child. Don't talk about apologies. It's all Grandma's fault. Grandma didn't protect you well enough. Child, don't be afraid anymore. Grandma is worried. Grandma will absolutely make you better right away." Meanwhile, on the other hand, the fifth princess also learned of Eris's illness. He fell ill because of this? That guy is such a good-for-nothing. This is what happens when you dare to defy me. He should understand now. But just then, a maid suddenly appeared here. "Your Highness, Princess Yvette. This is a gift personally sent by the Empress Dowager." She also said to her dearest family, "Yvette, this is a dessert that will never spoil. It will return everything you do, exactly as it was. This contains the Empress Dowager's sentiments. He said he hoped you would eat every bit of it." The fifth princess and the imperial concubine, sensing the warning, disappeared from the palace records forever. And from that day on, the Empress Dowager began to shower Eris with even more affection. She sent him creamy soup every day, and tea made from the empire's most precious ginseng. He even painstakingly coaxed me, all to persuade Eris to take a sip. However, to this, Eris proudly declared that I'm already better. "You don't need to come. I don't care. I'm so tired." The Empress Dowager isn't angry that I need to rest. She just said it with heartache. Yes. I need to rest properly. Grandma's leaving first. Come back tomorrow morning. In the evening, Alice took a sip of the tea the Empress Dowager had given her. Then she immediately spat it out. It was truly awfully bitter. Sienna laughed. "That's because there are many herbs inside. And although it caused you a lot of suffering, this illness has also allowed you to turn the tables." Eris said coolly, "Humph. Fine, then I'll reluctantly drink it. I'll make good use of that old woman. And if the time is right, I will ask him properly why he didn't help my mother back then." "Sienna, I'm really terrible, aren't I? I actually fawned over the man who indirectly caused my mother's death." The next second, Sienna wiped away the tears from Eris's eyes. "It's not like that, Your Highness. You're not bad at all. In this palace, where everyone fights tooth and nail for even the slightest bit of power, kindness and sincerity alone are absolutely not enough to survive." Hearing this, Eris immediately threw herself into Sienna's arms. "I understand. Thank you, Sienna. It's only you by my side. Don't leave me, okay?" 10 minutes later, Sienna arrived at the royal garden. He thanked Crown Prince Hillard for his help. "What can I give you as a reward?" Hillard is a little helpless. "I've already said it's okay. It seems you really must give me something. Your Highness, the Crown Prince. I want to repay you, and I want to stay in this deep palace. There's no such thing as completely selfless help. What would you like in return, then? So, will you come to my palace?" The little maid simply told a story, and she wet all the diapers in the entire imperial palace. The crown prince and the proud princess are fighting over a tower. Even the talented young prince, who was once immersed only in art, was willing to return to the secular world for him, just to make Sienna glance at him. It turned out that on this day, Sienna, to repay the crown prince, so I decided to go to his palace. Eris also specifically told that guy, if he did anything strange, to come back and tell me immediately. I'll give him a good lesson. Sienna smiled. Her Highness the princess is so lovely. How could such a strange thing happen? However, upon arriving at the crown prince's palace, Xylana discovered that she, as a maidservant, wasn't actually serving anyone, but to be served by others, especially by a servant of higher rank than himself. And just as he was awkwardly squirming, Crown Prince Hillard finally appeared. He bowed to the girl before him like a gentleman. "Miss Sienna, welcome to my palace. Your Highness, please be brief. What is it that you want me to do here?" "Sienna, you're so impatient. Alright, then I'll get straight to the point. There's only one thing I need you to do. That's to have dessert with me." He picked up a potato chip and offered it to Sienna's mouth. Sienna thought this must be the task the Crown Prince wanted him to do, so she readily complied. Sienna didn't act coy. She readily accepted the Crown Prince's offering, and watching him eat with such relish, the Crown Prince's expression grew increasingly radiant. "How does it taste? Is it delicious?" "Very good. It's not too sweet. It suits my taste perfectly. It has a strong fruity aroma. Your Highness, the chefs in your palace are truly excellent. Oh, I've received praise from Xylana. It seems the food I worked so hard on was worthwhile." Hearing this, the food in Xylana's mouth sprayed out 2.5 meters. Wow, he actually made this himself? So he timidly asked the Crown Prince, "Why did you make it yourself?" "Because when I'm with you, Sienna, I'm always very happy. Then the crown prince placed the little red bird on the table. He even broke the cookies into small pieces. The little bird happily ate them. And only then did Shiena notice that the cold-blooded crown prince actually had such a warm side. Your Highness, it seems you like animals very much. Indeed, I quite like small, cute creatures. Seeing them makes me feel very happy. But hearing him say that, Shiena suddenly remembered a story. A princess of the Winter Kingdom, though very beautiful, couldn't withstand the severe cold at all. She could only stay motionless in a room with a fireplace. A little bird, feeling sorry for the princess, appeared. I want to cut off a piece of the sun and give it to Her Highness, the princess. He said so. Thanks to the little bird bringing a piece of the sun, the princess could finally go to the beautiful world outside. Hearing this, the crown prince trembled for a moment, because he had heard this story. When he was little, he once had a girl he had a crush on. This is the story the girl told him. Over the years, Hilliard always kept this story in his heart. However, he couldn't remember the little girl's appearance at all. Therefore, Hilliard took this story as the only clue. Time returns to the present. Hilliard immediately asked Ziana who she heard this story from. Ziana said it was a fairy tale passed down in her hometown. Hilliard listened. The gleam of hope in his eyes instantly vanished. He muttered, "Dad, so that's it. It seems Shiena isn't the only one I'm looking for. If this is the widely circulated story, then my only lead is gone." So he spoke, "Shiena, I'm a little tired. You go back first." Meanwhile, Shiena leaned against the palace gate, thinking about the crown prince. How on earth did he know that story? That's actually a story he made up as a child, and he only told it to one person. I just told a lie earlier to avoid trouble. Shiena murmured, "That's impossible." After that, time flew by. Shiena, to give Eris a better life, found 2 new maids to serve him. They are all good friends of Chocho, so should be trustworthy. However, Eris looked completely disgusted. After all, he only wanted Shiena. So he proudly shook his head and hummed, "I don't want to look exactly alike. It really affects my mood. I can't even tell who's who. Your Highness, I'm Guagua. You are so beautiful. And you're studying so diligently. That's amazing. Your Highness, I'm Pippi. You are so cute. He's still so healthy. That's amazing." Shiena discovered that although Eris said he hated it, faced with their constant praise, Eris started to feel quite pleased with himself. I'm not that perfect either. No need to praise me so much." And so, Eris got along well with Guagua and Pai Pai. One day, Shiena and Chocho met and chatted. Chocho told her, "I've been promoted to a full-fledged maidservant. It's probably because I'm a very capable worker, and very strong. I was even personally requested by Princess Grace to serve in her palace." Then Chocho said my promotion exam will begin soon. And most importantly, there will be a raise. Shiena didn't really want to participate at first. After all, she'd only been working for half a year. She lacked experience. But if she could get a raise, she could hang out with Chocho. And she could buy pretty and cute little gifts for her princess. So Shiena decided to take the exam. However, things didn't go as planned. Even though Shiena performed flawlessly, she still failed. Actually, she wasn't surprised by the result. After all, she'd heard that, starting with the ultimate maidens, they consider one's background. If you have noble blood, you'll advance directly. Otherwise, you'll most likely fail. Immediately afterward, Shiena returned to the Ruby Palace. She found that Guagua and Pai Pai had also not advanced. Shiena knew that the 2 of them were exceptionally capable and experienced, but they all failed, probably because she's the hunter's daughter. And Eris, understanding this, was furious. He wouldn't allow his people to be bullied. So he immediately went to find the Empress Dowager. But Shiena stopped him, because the results are already out. And if I were to bother the Empress Dowager over such a trivial matter, there would certainly be problems. Your Highness, don't worry. There will always be opportunities. However, what Shiena didn't expect was that the opportunity would come so soon. That day, a long-haired maid approached him. "It's Shiena, right? I heard you were eliminated in this exam. Your skills are perfectly fine, though. So I have a proposal. Grant the Imperial Consort's request. If you can resolve this matter, I will promote you directly to the rank of Ultimate Attendant." Shiena knows that the Empress has 4 consorts below her. But even compared to the Empress, they don't have a single flaw. Such a person would ask a favor of me. I wonder what it could be. Just then, a girl with long golden hair suddenly appeared. "You're Sharana, aren't you? Nice to meet you." Shiena remembered that she was the youngest of the 4 empresses, Angelina. But what she hadn't expected was that Angelina looked so young. She was practically a child. Following this, Shiena flawlessly performed a curtsy. "Oh, no need to be so polite, Miss Yana. You're just as the rumors described. Because I heard you're the handmaiden serving Princess Eris. I've always been curious how you managed to transform a neglected child into the perfect princess, supported by the Empress Dowager herself. That's amazing. Then come with me. You must keep everything you see from now on a secret.